he decided, he made a list of the top 50 people that he wanted as clients, and he went after them. And in the end, he got all of them because he just didn't give up, and he kept rocking up with relevant reasons why they should work with him, and in the end, he got them. So this can make a massive difference. You know, you can work with less clients, and they can be bigger clients. You can increase your transaction size. I have clients that have tripled their transaction size, quadrupled their transaction size. When we first started doing this, we quadrupled our transaction size. So this is a very, very powerful process. So the Dream 50 was also popularized by a gentleman that we have done a lot of work with, or training with, called Chet Holmes, who also embraces this idea and has worked with hundreds and hundreds of different companies as a big way of transforming their sales. You can do more with less people, and you also have less drama. Often the business owners I talk to, they say, well, geez, the small people are the ones that kind of give us the grief. You know, the bigger clients that spend more, they're more organized, and there's less drama in dealing with them. So there's all sorts of really, really powerful reasons why you should work out who your list of ideal clients are and go after them. And you might not get them today or tomorrow, but you might get them in 6 months, you might get them in 12 months, you might get them in 18 months, and you should be spending a good percentage of your time on that, as well as working with some of the other ones. Determining motivation, we kind of touched on that. Really, it's just about knowing whether the person, so there's a difference between having a problem and actually wanting to do something about it. So you need to have something in your sales system that identifies motivation. So there are there's a couple of different ways that you can do that, but your system needs to contain that. And you need to set yourself up for success. And by saying that, I mean, we kind of alluded to this in the Dream 50, but work with companies that are growing. You know, if you're going to sell something to somebody and you know that industry is suffering, then you're setting yourself up for failure, because they're not going to have the extra discretionary income to be able to work with you. And especially if you're selling consulting services or financial services or whatever, you need to target the type of people that you want to work with, and they need to be the people that have got the money. It's as simple as that. So go where the money is. Don't work with people where the tide is going out. Work with companies and industries where the tide is coming in. And your list gives you the freedom to disconnect, the freedom of disconnect. It's easy to get too vested in the outcome of working with a particular client. If they go cold, or if they haven't got back to you, you end up wasting time trying to convince somebody to work with you, or someone to buy from you, who actually doesn't have they're not set up to do so. So that's a very, very important distinction to make. Positioning. So positioning relates to a couple of different type things. The top one being sales choreography. So sales choreography, your availability, your pre-positioning, the way you set yourself up from a package perspective, all constitute your positioning. And I'll be going into these in more detail as we move through the actual program, but just briefly, sales choreography can come down to, from a physical perspective, where you sit in the room, where you sit in relation to your prospect, your turf or their turf in terms of where the actual meeting takes place. Availability, so the ease of access, how they get to you, whether it be telephone, email, how easy you are to get a hold of. Pre-positioning, so what they know about you before the meeting. Was it from a referral? Was it because of an article that they read? Was it an article that they read in a publication that they respect? Direct contact, did they contact you direct, or did you contact them? Or are they a business equal? So all these things determine the context of the relationship, which also determine how your particular system works in terms of getting in front of that particular person. The shock and awe pack, we first got this idea from Dan Kennedy and have used it and implemented it in a number of different businesses. There are a number of different elements in the shock and awe pack, which I'll be going into in more detail, but the two key ones are social proof and credibility. So there can be 5 or 6 different elements, but the two sort of broad brushstrokes in terms of the shock and awe pack are social proof and credibility. So again, we'll go into that in more detail later on. So then in terms of the actual sales system, rapport. So rapport has to do with your headspace. So what it is that you actually tell yourself before you actually talk to somebody, the language that you use or what it is that you say, and your behaviour. So where you actually sit and how you position yourself and relate to the person as you begin the conversation. The second part of the actual sales process, so obviously rapport is the meet and greet part of it. The second part of the sales process, the sales system, are the questions that you ask. So the questions need to determine the person in a way that they work out that there is a business case in their own head to work with you on their own. So your questions need to position you and uncover in the mind of your prospect that there is a business case for you guys to work together. So that your questions need to be customized and designed to make that happen. So in this context, there is no push. It's them essentially uncovering in their own head and determining in their own mind that there is a business case to work with you, and ideally a no-brainer business case to work with you. There needs to be a bigger benefit than cost, and that's something that needs to take place as a result of the questions that you ask. Obviously, the syntax and the order of the questions that you ask is highly important in that context. There needs to be a good blend of emotion and logic in the way that your questions are asked and how they relate to this particular business case. And imagination, they need to leverage and make use of imagination. And at the end of the day, if there isn't a business case for the person to do something, then you need to tell them. It's as simple as that. The last thing that you want is for someone to buy something from you that doesn't need it, because if they don't need it, then it's not going to work for them, and if it doesn't work for them, they'll tell other people, and your credibility's gone. You know, and as a salesperson, you need to have credibility, and your credibility and your reputation can be dashed in an instant. So you need to have integrity in what you're doing, and having the right questions to ask gives you that power. It not only helps the person make the decision on their own, but it gives you the power to work out whether they are a prospect or not. And obviously there are questions that you ask when you're face to face, and there are questions that you need to ask before you actually get in front of them to determine whether they're actually going to be a good candidate for your particular product or service. Okay, so we've started with rapport, so that's the meet and greet part. Questions, which is the discover the need part of the process, then presenting the solution. So how do you present a powerful solution? Okay, well, stories are really powerful. You need to incorporate and build stories into what it is that you're doing. Relevance, key word here is relevance. It needs to be relevant. Your particular solution needs to be relevant to what your client is going through, and you need to relate the information that you determined from them in the needs discovery part of the process. You need to build that in here. Big mistake that you see salespeople make is that they just start off on this product knowledge thing, this product knowledge path, without relating anything back to what it is that they've discovered in the questions part or the needs discovery part of the process. Big mistake, and something that needs to be built in. So essentially the way I like to describe it is that you're presenting your particular solution with them as the star of the show. So you need to relate it to the core motivators that you uncovered in the questioning part of the process. So this questions part needs to be highly customized, and there needs to be a lot of thought that goes into that, because that really is the core of what goes on. So there's the present the solution, and then the commitment stage. So the commitment needs to have a couple of things. There needs to be an overall business case, as we've talked about. There needs to be a reason to act. There needs to be a reason to act now. So you need to build into your system a reason to act now. And there also needs to be, you need to uncover a greater amount of pain in staying where they are as opposed to taking action. So this really does constitute the main core components of the world's best sales systems. There are more bits and pieces to it, but these really are the broad brushstrokes, and this is what it is that I will be drilling down on as a part of this training. I'm really psyched to be bringing this to you, and it really does constitute the main thrust of what I've done both in practice, in my own businesses, in my own sales roles, and in the consulting part of what I've done over the last 8 years. And I'm really stoked to be sharing it with you because I think it's going to make a massive difference for you. So thanks for listening and watching, and I will have more for you shortly. Thank you.